Hi, this is Tony Rizzo from Marquee, and you are watching the best data you are not using. So let's get started. First of all, the best data you're not using is about knowing your audience. And before we can know our audience, we have to know a few things about your financials, about how your MCIF, how your members are interacting with your institution. Now, these numbers are from our Marquee standard numbers. We have done a study of about 35 million households, and these are the numbers that we came up with. You should know these for your institution. 2% of your households generate your profit. 70% of your products are not profitable. 15% of your members leave you each year. And 40% of your households are single service. Now, those are alarming numbers, certainly as financial institution marketers. So I would encourage you to go back to your MCIF, research these, get to know these numbers intimately, because we're certainly going to talk about in the rest of this presentation, and you're going to need to know what these are. Let's take a look at spending. Now, what you're looking at are the numbers that U.S. Bank, Bank of America, and Chase Bank spent in 2010 just to acquire student credit cards. So clearly, their per account acquisition costs that they're willing to spend in some cases are substantially more than what we can afford, certainly what most of us are willing and able to spend. Take a look at this number here, $228,000 Bank of America spends every hour of every day, not including their media buy. You put their media buy in there and it's $500,000 every hour of every day. The average bank and community credit union spends about $50 every hour of every day. So there's a pretty big difference between $50 and $500,000. And my point here is this: we're not going to have the $500,000 an hour budget. We're going to have closer to the $50. So we have to be pretty specific, pretty relevant about what we're doing, and very focused and targeted. Now, when that happens, there's a lot of good benefit that we as financial marketers are going to receive. And let's take a look at that. First of all, focused, relevant, targeted, continuous marketing has a tremendous effect on profitability. I do those kinds of things and I see more members adopt our products. And what you're looking at here is a chart of products. Whether I have 1 through 5 products, when I have my 5th product, look at the impact on profitability. It's substantial. This chart here looks at the number of campaigns over the course of a year and the likelihood of a member having 4 or more products. So you can see the red bar, 3. If you market to me, I have a 20% greater chance of having 4 or more products than if you do nothing or if you do one thing to me a year. The more you communicate, the more I'm going to adopt, the more I'm going to do business with you. It also has a very positive impact on cross-selling. 6.8 years if I have 3 products. That's tremendous. So we need to be specific. We need to cross-sell. We need to upsell. We need to do it across the membership consistently. Also has a very positive impact on our single service ratio. What you're looking at here is single product households by number of campaigns. You can see the orange bar. If I'm doing 4 more campaigns, you're communicating with me 4 more times a year, I have a 16% chance of being single service. Versus if you do nothing or only communicate with me once a year, I have a 34 to 40% chance of doing absolutely nothing. Now, as I said before, you need to know what these numbers are for your institution. Any MCIF can certainly lead you in that direction. So when you look at the best data that you're not using, I would challenge you and ask you this: do you know your own metrics? Do you know your own numbers? Knowing those are going to have a very good effect on what you need to do and what your path has to be. And I'm a huge believer in relevant, personal, and specific communication leveraged with your data has a positive impact on profitability, a positive impact on member participation, and a positive impact on lifetime value. Now let's take these apart a little bit and look at data. The best data that we're not using, and we're just going to call it big data. Take a look at some of the information that's been generated over a period of time. Since the dawn of time to 2003, 5 exabytes have been created. Don't worry about what an exabyte is. It's big. Now, in 2009, to compare that much data was generated every 2 days. 1.8 zettabytes in 2011. That's the equivalent in 1 year of loading 57 billion iPads. In 2011, 100 terabytes were uploaded to Facebook every day. There's a lot of data being uploaded, being generated, being shared. And institutions that thrive and not just survive but continue to grow over the next decade are going to figure out how to take all of this data, both well-defined data, things from your core system, transaction data, demographic, psychographic data, unknown or more nebulous data like Twitter feeds, like Facebook data, like blog data, and create and link them together to do some predictive modeling. Now, by way of example, there was a study done on the word rice in Indonesia over 2 years just by using Twitter. The number of mentions and when the word rice was mentioned was a better predictor of the commodity price of rice as opposed to what the commodity markets were predicting the price would be. So they were able to draw a correlation of the number of times a word was mentioned, and what the price of that particular commodity was going to be. Now, that's a pretty big idea. So in other words, can I look in my market and look at the words mortgage combined with my predictive modeling with my MCIF and know when I should be promoting mortgage? That's a ways off. So for right now, for us in terms of financial marketers, the idea of big data has to focus on the consistent use of demographics, credit scores, psychographics, your core data, predictive modeling. Big data for most of us 2.0 is payments, payment data, transaction data, geolocation data. Let me give you an example. It's a letter received by someone that went to the Bass Pro Shop. And they got the credit card, they took the deal. Pretty soon after they received that, I'll tell you how soon in just a second, they received this letter to move balances over. Not a new or particularly earth-shaking offer, but notice over to the left. You do this, you get $15 gift cards for Target, Starbucks, and Best Buy. Now, it's no coincidence that this is the letter I received, and these were the 3 places that I had went in the past 30 days. Now, guess, maybe, they could have done predictive modeling and said most people that shop at Bass Pro Shops also shop at these 3 locations, but I don't think that it was. I think that they are looking at transactional data from credit cards and doing predictive modeling. Now, the other thing about this is I received this within 2 days after I received my Bass Pro Shop card, after I made my purchase. So it was personal, it was relevant, it was specific, and it was timely. Some other examples of that. Using that transactional data, you're looking at a credit union campaign where the institution decoded their bill pay data and made a series of offers. This is one of over 42 different offers that are made based on what they see that member doing. They do it about 3 times a year. Every time they do it, they average about 281 new loans and $3 million in brand new money coming in the door. So the whole idea of getting that big data, of looking at your data holistically, is going to give you a better viewpoint of that member, a better way to take action with your data, a better way to have great results. Here's one that was done with just using the big data point of predictive modeling. Using what you purchased previously, we predict what you're going to buy next. Simple, easy campaign, $3 million in new loans and a 4% response rate. This one here, using the data point of new account relationship, new household, a series of letters are sent. We know this is onboarding. 11% response, $15 million in new loans in just 6 months. The ROI on this is tremendous. If you're not doing onboarding, please at least give us a call. We can show you how to do it, what to do, how to do it right, how to get these kind of results. Next trend that we see in terms of the best data you're not using. Now remember, first we talked about what are some of the bigger issues we see in the membership. Those with attrition, those with profitability. What happens when we use data to drive marketing? Well, we saw great outcomes. Single service was lowered, profitability increases, participation went up. We then looked at the idea of big data. What types of things can we use? Transactional data like bill pay. account opening dates, predictive modeling data points to generate more and better responses. This idea here deals with loving the member. Now, when we talk about the best data that you're not using, the best data we're not using is the ability to have a good conversation with the member. It's about less screaming. It's about less sexy marketing and more nuts and bolts blocking and tackling marketing. The best data that you're not using deals with how your products are going to fit that member, and you're going to tell them how they fit specifically. One size clearly anymore obviously does not fit all. High performance marketing departments going forward into the next decade are going to be those that master the art of having a dialogue with the member, not those that are the most creative. It's going to be about really listening, and this is where we get into data. What's the data telling us to do and acting on it? Not what I feel, but what is the data telling us? And then using that to take some new and unique approaches to protecting our best and brightest relationships. It'll be about taking that, linking what that member's doing, both within the core, both outside the core with things like bill pay data, and then linking those behaviors to come up with some type of a 360-degree single view of that member. In doing that, we're going to have stronger targeting, more customized messages, real-time fulfillment. So we're going to get much more nimbler, we're going to get much more smarter. Let me show you some examples of that, put into action. Letter here, local government federal credit union, looked at those members who had positive equity in their vehicle. Well, how do you know that? Well, we went out to NADA. We took the VIN number and appended what the car was worth at a trade-in and a retail value, and then a sell-it-yourself value, subtracted that from the balance of the loan to come up with an equity statement. Then we ran that information through a credit model and basically told you you have positive equity, you're pre-qualified for an offer. 10% response, $4 million in loans. That's listening to the member. That's understanding that member's really looking for is value. How do you explain value? Well, one of the ways you do it is demonstrating on a tangible asset, like their car, how much it's worth. So it's about listening and making a good offer and doing it over and over again. One of the other ways you can do that is through behavioral triggers. Now, behavioral triggers look at the analysis of data, acting on that data, sending a mail, a letter, an email, a call to a call request that an officer makes to a member, or that the call center is making to the member, and then tracking those results. Nothing new, but the new twist on it is doing that daily, doing that every hour of every day, all year long. And what it lets you do is focus on what matters most. 40,642 are the number of books on Amazon.com that deal with personal transformation. 6,367 are the number of business transformation books out on Amazon.com. All of those focus on answering one central question. What moves the needle? What's going to give you the most results with the least amount of resistance? Now, when we start to look at what marketing departments do on a daily basis, the to-do list is almost overwhelming. You're pulled in a lot of different directions. Then you compare that to what your member's doing on a daily basis. And therein lies that marketing paradox. While you're trying to market, that member's just trying to live, and along the way, you only have so many hours in a day to get the kind of results that you need. And sometimes it works really well. Sometimes it doesn't work well. And really, most of the time, it doesn't work well because none of us have 100% response rates. So we start to ask the question of why that is. And here's what I think it is. You're trying to sell on your schedule. You only have so many hours in a day, and you have a calendar that says, hey, it's time to do mortgage loans. Well, at the same time, that member is buying on their schedule. And you're trying to link up when you're selling, when they're buying, and you're trying to do it in a short amount of time so you can move the needle to drive the profitability, to drive the results, to get the raise that you want, to be a marketing rock star within your institution. Now, there's two ways that one can go about that. We can do a few campaigns a year and hope that those few campaigns a year work extraordinarily well. Now, 5-10 years ago, we could have done that, right? When money was cheap and when loan volume was abundant, you could do that all day long. Didn't really have to have a lot of thought. It was a rate, it was a sexy piece, and there you go. Not the case anymore, not going to be the case anymore. One way of doing it, all your eggs in one basket. The way that I prefer is to do a lot of very small, managed events that go on all year long. And I'm going to tell you, this is the way to go. Now, to get to that point, we can either choose to work longer, harder, we can clone ourselves or hire more people, or we can throw money at it. And we've already talked about that from a money standpoint, you don't have enough. So it's time for that kind of marketing moment of Zen. We need to execute a strategy that relies on speaking directly to an individual, that elusive market of one. Now, to do that, there are 4 traits that you need to exhibit as a marketer. 1, you need to be specific in your marketing, giving that member the idea that I know you. 2, you need to be relevant, telling that member that I know that you are looking for an auto loan in this case. 3rd, being personal. The idea that you're saying, I know you are looking for an auto loan, Joe. And now really up until this point, most of us were missing the 4th leg that really is going to drive results to another level. And that's one of being timely. The idea that you're telling that individual member, Joe, I know you are looking for an auto loan today. Now let's look at a quick case study on an idea, on a concept, on a problem that all of us reach or all of us have. And that's one of retention. Now we're working with an institution in the upper Midwest. They have $1.5 billion in assets, 150,000 in members. 15,000 of those are in the top 10%. And we did some churn analysis and found out that 10% of those households in their top 10% are at risk of leaving every year. That's 50% of their profit, or $3 million a year. So in other words, from January to June, they've got to work just to keep their heads above water. Now, I don't know about you, not my idea of a great time. So what we're doing for them is deploying a series of small, consistent, daily marketing events. And what are they? Well, one's a birthday announcement. One's going to look at the dollar amount in the household. If it decreases substantially, we're going to send a letter and generate a phone call that makes an offer for additional services. When somebody in that upper group buys a new product, an auto loan for example, and they're 5 times more likely to want a home equity loan, they're going to get a home equity solicitation. Now remember, none of these are earth-shaking. None of these are things you haven't thought of before, or maybe haven't even done before. But quite frankly, have you done them daily, based on real-time analysis of your database and acting on that? Member anniversary. We know you have a lot of choices in financial services, but we're sure glad you're here. Just that little way of saying thank you, and done daily. Loan runoff. When that loan hits a certain balance or term, don't wait months to pull your list and send your letter. Do it daily. Do it as it's happening real time. Certificate retention. Targeting those accounts who have $50,000 to $100,000 certificates that are going to roll over. Before they do, send them something that's special, something that's, recognizing their contribution. Generate a call log from an officer to call that individual member. That's member service. That's being personal. That's being relevant. That's being specific. And absolutely, that's about being timely. Same thing on the balance increase. If somebody comes in and puts $100,000, $200,000 in your institution, somebody better be doing something to recognize that contribution. That's significant and important. For this institution, it's less than 30,000 letters a year. The total investment, including the software, is under $150,000 a year. That's $150,000 to protect 50% of their profit. $3 million. That's a pretty good investment. That's a pretty good trade-off. So now remember, every day, every week, analyze, communicate, call, track. How impactful would this product, this strategy be within your institution? And really anything can be made a trigger. A date, a rate, a balance, a credit score, age, product mix, value score, individual product profitability. As long as you have it, we can model it and make it into a proper behavioral trigger. And we're doing several of these right now. They range from welcome letters, mortgage prospecting and credit card prospecting and auto prospecting deal with triggers that are made outside of the institution. In other words, you applied for an auto loan, a mortgage loan, somewhere else yesterday. Today I get a notification. Today I send you a letter. Tomorrow you're going to get a phone call from someone at the institution asking for the business. So we can also turn behavioral triggers externally and target, as well as internally by doing birthday, anniversary, welcoming our commercial accounts. These are just some samples of things that we're doing now. So when we look at the best data that you're not using, part of that is we're just not looking at our MCIF system correctly, getting out the most key, those key performance indicators. We know that when we do and we're personal, we're relevant and specific, we drive those results, right? Participation increases, profitability increases, single service likelihood decreases. We know that when we use things like big data, transactional data, we're able to be more personal, more relevant, more specific with an individual. We have good results than we do when we do that. We use those kinds of dates or those kind of data points from bill pay, those kind of data points from new account openings, balance movements. We know that the high performance marketing department is one that listens, is one that reacts to what the member wants through the proper use of data. And we saw that demonstrated with the local government piece, right? We know that when we add, in terms of the best data that we're not using, we add the dynamic of timeliness, that now we're being ultra responsive. We're really having an incredible conversation with that member because they're feeling that they are known, that you know what I'm doing, because you're reacting daily. Next part of the best data that we're not using deals with using credit data. And in fact, I know that I can double your business without adding one new customer, one new member. For every one loan that you hold, on average, there are 10 somewhere else. For every dollar in loans that you own, there's 40 somewhere else. Now, we do an analysis, and I know this is a little grainy here on your screen most likely, but we do an analysis that looks at FICO. And we look at loan balances and numbers that are outside of your institution. And what it basically tells me is how many loans you own versus how many you can get, how many dollars you own versus how many dollars that you can go get. We stratify that across auto, mortgage, home equity, credit card, installment loans. And we do a very comprehensive analysis that looks at what happens if you recapture 2, 5, 7, 10% of that volume. What impact does it have on profitability? This is an enlightening exercise that leads a lot of our customers to say, you know what, we don't have to go and prospect a lot, we just have to do a better job of looking at the data, of listening, of reacting, of making better offers. Because we know that when we do, we have tremendous responses. This is an example here that looking at what was available already in the membership, communicating what was available, using the data to show sample savings amounts that were relevant, personal, and specific, we had a 4% response and $22 million in new loans. Similar strategy, but this one looked at 4 different products, 4% response, $1.3 million in new loans. This institution has over 100,000 members. We sent out less than 2,000 letters. High performance marketing today is not about sending hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail. It's about being personal, relevant, specific, focusing on most likely responders. Now to wrap up, I'm going to talk about the best data that we're not using deals with ROI. And this is an area that I see often overlooked by a lot of marketers. Simply not measuring it. If you're not measuring it, you can't count it. If you can't count it, don't wonder why you're not being taken seriously in the boardroom. That's the only way you as a marketer can be considered to have a relevant seat at the table, is if you measure it, if you demonstrate your department's value. When we look at ROI, it's a very simple measurement. And I've heard some people measuring ROI in terms of likes. If you're doing that, stop. That's wrong. I'll also caution you on something else that we're seeing. As I read more and more and more, I see consultants start to talk about some very unusual ways that ROI is being calculated. They're mentioning the new ROI, things like member advocacy, the value of your brand in the cloud, improving the referral rate, the brand perception measurement. That is ridiculous. ROI is a very simple metric. It is not a variable equation. What you made minus what you spent over what you spent. That's it. Doesn't have any flowery media metrics with it. Likes, number of retweets, none of that stuff. It's all about, here's how much you made. Now you can count how much you made if you sent out an auto loan promotion and you also generated other loans. I believe you should count that in terms of what you made. I also believe that you should count everything that you spent in a promotion. In other words, if you had other internal costs that went into your campaign, you need to count those too. Not to lower your ROI, but to really understand the dynamic of the ROI and what it means. So that's our presentation. We talked about data out of our MCIF system, what it means, what are some key performance indicators. When marketing is done right, done consistently, some very good things happen. We said, what if we use data to drive response rates in a much more hypersensitive way? We demonstrated when that's done what the positive outcomes are, both in terms of profitability and campaign response rate in dollars added to the bottom line. We then looked at a trait of the high performance marketing department in terms of using data, and that was one of having a conversation and listening and reacting. And we saw in that local government piece that when that happens, when data is used, when we listen to what a member is looking for, in our case value, good things happen. We then said that good marketing is personal, relevant, and specific, and hyper excellent marketing is timely. And how do we use data on a daily basis to drive higher performance results? We then said one of the big parts of data that we're not using, most of us, are not looking at what our members have somewhere else. You can do that through a very simple analysis of credit score and product balances outside of your institution. And when not only you do the analysis, but you do something with it, good things happen. We demonstrated that in the Right Pat piece with a very high response rate and over $20 million in new loans. And then lastly, I make a plea to you to track everything that you do. If you can't measure it, you don't get credit for it. If you don't get credit for it, you don't move into the boardroom. You don't get the kind of money you're looking for in your career. My company does have a product called Trigger Pro. It is a daily marketing engine. My company does have a product called Loan Opportunity Analysis, which analyzes member behavior outside the institution. My company does have direct marketing services. My company does have MCIF and CRM capabilities. If any of these things interest you, got my email and my phone number, please give me a call. You have a great rest of the day and ultra success to you in marketing.